Hello quilters! I'm Debbie Brown, one of the designers of Cutie Patterns. All Cutie Pattern quilts begin with 16 fat eighths of fabric, plus some background, borders, or whatever else is needed to complete the quilt. This quilt is fenced in, and I used Paradise Park fabric by Batt Scooters for Bennar tags. In this video, I'm going to show you how I machine quilted this fenced in cutie quilt on my home sewing machine using my walking foot and a decorative stitch. Quilting on a home sewing machine can be scary, but with some care, it can be fun and turn out great.
Over the 4th of July holiday weekend, I pieced my fenced in cutie quilt using Batt Scooters Paradise Park fabric. It's just luscious. I had so much fun piecing it. It went together so quickly, and it gave me a couple ideas on the quilting of it. So as I was piecing this quilt, this is 2 inches, this is 2 inches, this is 2 inches, this is 2 inches. And I thought I could, since these are kind of the colors of the American flag, I could make it wave. So I put the walking foot on my sewing machine, and I put a left side seam guide on. It's not the most common accessory for a sewing machine. A lot of times there's a right side seam guide, but this really works well for machine quilting. I turned on the serpentine stitch. I call it a bacon stitch because it looks like the wiggly ends of cooked bacon. I'm stitching at 8.5 millimeters wide, 2 millimeters tall, and that is the bacon stitch that I'm working with. And I'm stitching one right down the middle of every piece. And I'm having so much fun. Walking foot quilting is just so soothing. It's just such a great process. Now, I had to draw one line, and I will have to draw one more before I'm done. So I took a ruler and I drew a line in the middle of my quilt, going up and down, in the middle of one column. Because there is no 2-inch piecing in the border, there's no 2-inch piecing like in the middle of this block here, so I had to draw one line down just using a ruler and a chalk pencil. And then I followed that line approximately down the middle with my serpentine stitch. And now with my left side seam guide, I can have the left side seam guide run through the middle of the previous row column, and now I can look at it and gauge using the left side seam guide or my foot in the middle of the 2-inch piecing. So it's just really simple, really soothing. My machine is threaded with white confetti thread in the needle, which is a 50 weight cotton, and it is threaded with white DecoBob in the bobbin, which is an 80 weight polyester, so the bobbin will last a good long time. I do use my Batt Scooters whenever I'm working with the walking foot because I'm pushing up such a bulk of quilt. I have all of this in my lap. I have to push up the entire length of the quilt every column. So I start stitching way out in the batting because I'm using the scissor button on my machine, and that cuts the bobbin thread really, really small. So sometimes it takes a couple stitches for it to catch the bobbin thread to get started. And through the border, I'm following my left side seam guide down the middle of the previous row column. Once I get to this piecing, however, I can follow the seam guides and just make sure that my foot is going in the middle-ish. Or I can watch the seam guide. Here I can look ahead and aim for this 2-inch piece here or follow the seam guide. When I'm at the end, I'm going to press my scissor button, cut the thread, work my way back up to the top, and stitch column after column after column. When I get to the border, I will be using my seam guide though. This is a 4-inch border. There's going to be one 1-inch in and one 3-inch in, and there's nothing marked here, so I'm going to follow the seam guide the whole time. I finished stitching all the vertical waves, and it looks great. But I'm having too much fun to stop now, so I'm going to turn the quilt sideways, which I just did, and I'm now going to quilt across it. So I'm going to make a wavy grid all over the quilt. So as I talked about marking it, I found the center of this section here, and I'm taking that marking up here into the border, and I'm going to mark this so that I can start with my first line, and then I can use my left side seam guide to continue on across the quilt. And I'm going to quilt the vertical lines the same way I quilted the horizontal lines. It's going to have a big wavy checkerboard, and I'm really looking forward to making that happen and seeing the finished result. Before I start quilting though, I'm changing the bobbin. If my bobbin runs out in the middle of this wiggle stitch, this wavy stitch, it's really difficult to match it up again. So I'm making sure I have a full bobbin to start the second quilting of the quilt, and I'll finish up those bobbins in another project. I just want to make sure that I don't have to pick out the row if I'm unable to get it to match.
Be sure to like this video and hit the subscribe button. Head on over to DebbieBrownQuilts.com and subscribe to my newsletter so you won't miss any quilting goodness. Thanks for watching.